Hi, good afternoon. Valerie Milano, the senior editor of the Hollywood Times. I'm happy to be in Palm Springs, California right now, but I'm here with my guests talking about their film. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Valerie. Hi, I'm Leah Cevoli. I am the lead producer of Delco the movie. I also play Dr. Amy Gordon in the film and was the crowdfunding manager, which kicked off this whole project a few years back where we raised the funds.
Beautiful.
And I'm Chris Pierdomenico. I'm the writer, director, producer, and editor of the film. Just, I guess the brainchild of the film. This is based off a school project I made about 22 years ago, and we finally got to see it, to do it professionally. But it's loosely based off my own experiences.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I was about to ask for those that might not be familiar with Delaware County, what is Delco and what inquired and inspired you to make an entire movie celebrating its unique personality? I think you can still answer that.
I think it was just one of those things where I was starting to see stuff like Mayor of Easttown and Task pop up, and even going back a few decades, like Mean Girls. I've always enjoyed films where I recognize the places, or TV shows or movies where I recognize the locations, and one of the most famous movies ever was kind of nearby in Philadelphia, so that we've all gone up the Rocky Steps, and that was kind of something I wanted to have too. I wanted to create a movie where people would know the locations and could, actually go there, and make a pilgrimage, if they wanted to.
Thank you for that. The film has been described as both heartfelt and hilarious. How did you strike the balance between comedy and genuine emotion without slipping into stereotypes?
That's a great question. A lot of trial and error, I guess. I've been writing, directing short films for quite some time, much longer. And yeah, you kind of just have to find a balance. The way I try to strive for that, because I try to get out of my own head, is we do a lot of table reads, and I try to go off of the vibe that comes from that. Whether is there too many jokes here? Do we need to have a serious moment? And I think a lot of times it's also just for those serious moments, kind of giving it a chance to breathe. Not feeling like I have to come in with a joke like immediately. And so it depends. And also, even like when I watch it with an audience, there's stuff that I uh, did not expect them to laugh at, and they did. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I never would have thought that would have been funny. And there's things that I thought was really, really funny myself, but got nothing. And so later versions, I made some trimming, and yeah, I kind of play to the audience. I kind of get the feel of the audience, I guess, is a big part of it. And trial and error.
You
Yeah.
know what's also interesting about that question, though, Valerie, the whole tongue-in-cheek balance just with Delaware County itself, right? So I'm also from the same area. Chris and I graduated from the same high school in Delaware County, just 10 years apart. And then I moved down to Los Angeles, and we've now reconnected with me be back on the East Coast. And Delco itself, because of things like Mayor of Easttown, has a bit of an exaggerated accent. And one of the number one comments that we've gotten from strangers online that haven't seen the film yet and that are just basing it on the trailer is that they don't think it's authentic enough. They don't hear the Delco accent, or that, or these people don't really live there. And that's the funniest thing, because we actually are all born, bred, working, everyone in the film from the top to the bottom is from either this county or the surrounding counties. So it's kind of a funny thing that because Chris is writing focused on kind of keeping it real and not that tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, and let the humor be organic, we've actually gotten comments to the opposite of like, they're not Delco enough.
Interesting. Yeah. I was going to ask Chris, and I'm going to get back to you, Leah, but as the writer and director, and she may have answered this already, were the characters, were they really inspired by real people you've known, or are they a blend of the unforgettable personalities that seem to exist in every hometown?
I guess a little of both. I mean, the group of friends is certainly very loosely based off myself and some friends I had in high school. Especially even the guys that work in the video game store. They are very very closely, very heavily based on friends of mine. The adult characters were not necessarily based on they weren't really based on my parents at all. And it's funny because like the adult characters in the movie have problems. And I think if somebody's watching this, somebody would say, "Oh man, like Chris has some dad issues or something," but I totally don't.
Okay.
That was that was more invented for the sake of the plot.
Got it. Leah, from a producer's perspective, what was the biggest challenge in bringing this very regional story to the screen, and what surprised you most during production?
Good questions. One of the biggest realistic problems that we had was we were actually set to go into production just as the SAG-AFTRA strike launched 2 summers ago. So we did apply for the interim contract because there were certain lower budget indie projects that could continue onward during the strike. But in the delay of receiving that approval, we had to make the final call and push the entire shoot. And for those of you listening to this, we made the call to postpone the shoot. We released all of our actors and crew. And the very next day, we got the approval for the interim that we could have used it, but we had already we already just we were like, you know what? We'll take this as a sign. We'll take we got about an extra 6 months out of it, and then we went into production about 6 months later with our first couple days of shooting at the end of 2023. So I would say logistically, that was one of the biggest problems because we did lose a location or two during that time period, things like that. One of the things that surprised me the most, I spent the last 25 years of my life living and working in Los Angeles as a film producer, a TV film actor. And I've been involved in many, many, many indie productions. And I've produced about a dozen or so. And I've helped crowdfund a few hundred. And what surprised me the most about Delco the movie was just how absolutely amazing, encouraging, and supportive the entire town was, the entire county, really. Not only did we double our crowdfunding goal in 30 days and we raised about $65,000, but when the crowdfunding campaign ended, for the next 6 to 9 months, money continued to come in from local businesses who wanted to be a part of it. Chris helped orchestrate, a continued perk, so to speak, where if you were a local business, you could still donate to the campaign. And when you see the movie, one of my favorite scenes is the opening. It's a 4-minute opening sequence, and you see so many of these businesses that help support us and helped contribute, to our budget. And I just love it. It's one of those movies where you don't think Delaware County is a character. You don't think that's the diner that you used to go to. It's the diner that you used to go to. Tom Jones, after your high school prom, everyone went there and we got to shoot there. And to just kind of piggyback on that, location wise, every single location was donated to us, was an investment. We did not, there might have been one or two, but the majority of locations we did not. That really helped our budget tremendously, and that's something you'd never see happen in any of the major markets. And the support, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sold out screenings last year when the film came out. Over 2,000 people came out to see this film, covered on every local channel, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, you name it. They came out and covered it. So the press and publicity have also been absolutely astounding, as well as the community support.
Wow, thank you for that. That's very interesting.
I want to give a shout out to Brad Fab Welding Industries. They were one of our executive producers. Stephen Bradley was a huge help in getting us. It was one of, we had about like at least 30 local Delco businesses, and he was one of the biggest companies to give us like some of the biggest funding, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Smart. Yeah, good. Good. Yeah. So one of the things audiences often connect with is its authenticity. Were there any local, I know you've talked about some of this, but any local landmark traditions or inside jokes that you absolutely refuse to leave out of the film?
Yep, yep. And even a few that we like, the two of us were like, oh my gosh, yes, that is so Delco, even though we're like 10 years apart. And I think one of them is, as I just mentioned, Tom Jones Restaurant. Chris will tell you, like, that was the one location that he like was like, oh my gosh, I have to have. And they were the first to sign on and come on board. And that's a location that meant just as much to my generation as it did to Chris's generation. I graduated in the 90s. Chris graduated in the O's, I guess you call them, the 2000s. And that same family diner was where we went after our proms. It was where Chris's generation went after their proms, and they're still going to this day.
Interesting. So, whichever one want to talk about this, even though the story is rooted in Delco, the themes of family and friendship and community are universal. What do you hope audiences who've never set foot in Pennsylvania will take away from the film?
I think just that everyone has a complicated relationship with where they grew up, and I have I've sent the film, or I've screened the film in places that weren't Delco. One of the first places we screened outside of Delco was at Smart Castle Cinemas in New Jersey. So it's Kevin Smith's movie theater, and Kevin Smith was a huge influence, on my career. But I kind of had no idea how it was going to be received, but people relate to it because they just see Delco, they just kind of fill in the blank of like their town, like they're afraid they're gonna, never get out of their town that they grew up in. So I think it's a very natural thing to have feelings about that, and I think that's why it's so universal, even though we have, specific things in there, I think to as a treat to the locals.
Yeah. Okay. Well, independent filmmaking always requires creativity and perseverance. Looking back, is there a moment during production that you haven't spoken about when you thought, this is where we make movies?
Yeah, I think the moment I had was the first day that we worked with Brian O'Halloran, who plays the pastor in the movie. And so Brian O'Halloran was the star of Clerks. He's somebody I have followed for a long time. He's in the Kevin Smith sphere, and I've known him for quite a few years now. But when I was on set, like outside the church, we were setting up the first shot, so first time directing him. And I'm looking at the monitor, like, oh my gosh, like this is, if you had told me I was going to be doing this as a kid, I wouldn't have believed you that I'd be directing Brian O'Halloran, I'd have him on my monitor, the film I'm about to start. And especially also to have my parents there on that day. That was just really cool too, to kind of be able to kind of share that with them as well.
I'll back that up. That same day, actually, I had a few family members of my own, and for me it's gotten to be such a treat to do what I love, but to do it back in my hometown. My father got to play a featured extra. A couple of my nieces and nephews are in it. A couple of my sisters got to be in it. So a lot of the background are friends and family of Chris and I. The high school teachers are actually real retired high school teachers, and one in particular taught both Chris and me 10 years prior, and he plays himself in the movie, Dr. Frampton. But on top of that, I think for me, it was also at our red carpet, at our premiere, at our screening, and just seeing like, wow, we we actually really did it. We actually really pulled it off, and the town really did support us, and they really did come out to see it, and they really did like it. It was like, okay, wow, we really did this.
Love it.
My sister joked earlier that day. Chris, I'm not sure if I said this to you or not, but she said something along the lines of like, if the movie, if you don't get the laughs and the movie's not funny, people will forgive the writing and they'll forget about it. But if this event you guys pull off isn't any good, people will be talking about that for a long time. I was like, yeah, I might not be able to show my face around here, but luckily we both still can.
Yeah, before that first screening, I think that was the scariest I've ever been in my life. Because you just don't know, like you don't know how this is going to go, and I think a moment for me was just realizing, like, wow, like I think any creator is excited when other people care about their creations, and so that was cool just to kind of have something tangible like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been to quite a few screenings and showings and film festivals. But this time you're screening at the River Valley Film Festival and staying for the audience Q&A. And I interview a lot of filmmakers that don't even come to the particular film festival. What are you most looking forward to there? Hearing people's reactions, answering questions, or simply just sharing the film with the new audience?
All of the above.
Yeah, just anytime I see it with a new crowd that's seeing it for the first time, that's just really cool because you don't, different crowds will react differently, to different scenes and different lines. I love going to film festivals mainly because I love hanging out with other filmmakers. And so that's something I always kind of enjoy is kind of seeing the other films and getting to talk to them like, oh, how did you do that? Let's talk about that. And they'd ask me questions about how I did my film. So that's I think for me that's my favorite part, going to the festivals.
Yeah, and I love the Q&As. I love to be able to kind of share my experience and then also get questions and think further about things. But I was really attracted to what's going on because the River Valley Film Festival seems to be very well organized and very well put together. And I love the communication that we're getting from Corey and the team. And it just, everything sounds really great. And I'm also looking forward to this haunted hotel I hear about.
Love it. Well, you're gonna have to tell Corey I said hi. I got to make it out there to one of these festivals because I've heard the same things, Leah, about this particular festival. I know we're running out of time, but finally, after audiences laugh and meet these memorable characters, and also spend some time in Delco, what do you hope they're still thinking about as they leave the theater?
Hmm.
I hope they're still thinking about uh I hope they're still wondering kind of what happens to these characters because I'm not done with them yet. I have another Delco movie in the works. That's it's not exactly a sequel, but it exists in the same Delco universe. And so I hope that they leave the screening where like, wow, I want to see more of Delco.
Yeah, and as the producer, I'm hoping they're going, where are their social medias? Let me follow them. DelcoTheMovie.com. How do I find out more?
You read my mind, Leah. I was about to ask you, how could our readers and our viewers find more about the film? So good
Yes,
for you.
yes. DelcoTheMovie.com is the absolute best way. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Delco the Movie, and we'll keep you updated on all the great stuff.
Yes, and please keep the Hollywood Times dot today, HollywoodTimes.net, and the Hollywood Times Official is our YouTube channel. Keep us in the loop on your future endeavors and have a great time. Keep doing your creativity as well as you do it. Thank you
Hmm.
for taking the time with us today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Valerie.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.